Okay, we're going to work on chapter 3.6, construct, and we're going to do constructions, constructing parallel and perpendicular lines. And specifically, we are going to construct a pair of parallel lines. We're going to construct a perpendicular line through a particular point on that line. And then we're going to construct a perpendicular line from a point that's not on the line itself. So let's get to working on this. Okay, so constructing parallel lines. If we pick point A and a point B, because we need 2 points to define a line. Oops. There we go. So there's our line AB. Okay. And now we need to draw a line that's parallel, which means that in effect my pencil is going to be parallel. It doesn't meet the line AB. It's equidistant all the time. And we're not going to arbitrarily just grab a ruler and measure a specific distance off the line. We're going to be a little more precise than that. So we want the line to go through point C, and that line has got to be parallel to AB. So first step, draw a transversal that goes through A and C. So there's our transversal. And now we are going to create a situation where the corresponding angles are going to be congruent. So we're going to set this compass so that it doesn't reach the distance from A to C. It has to be more than half. So here we go. We're centered on A, and we draw an arc. And we're going to be centered on C and draw an arc, and then unfortunately I didn't draw my transversal long enough, so we're going to have to straighten that out in a second. Alright, so there's our arc. Now let's clean this up. Okay, and let's extend that line the way it should be. There we go. Now, the important part to note is that this segment going from A to this point is congruent from C to that point. Okay, so let's label those points. So we got A, B, C. Let's call this one D. And let's call this one down here E. And let's call this one up here F. Okay, now, as I said, since we've got this arc here, this segment is congruent to that segment, and likewise right here as well. So, got them all marked. Okay. Now, I want to be consistent about this length from C to E. So let's mark that off with a compass. So I need to make that a smidge longer. That's about right. Let's just double check. Nope, that's certainly too long. Okay, that's beautiful. Okay, so now that went from C to E, so I need to go from F to that intersection of that arc. Okay. That's point G. Okay. Now, we're going to connect C and G. And this resulting line is going to be parallel to that line. Let me just write that down before I forget. AB is parallel to CG. Let's talk about Y. It's sort of a glimpse into the future. When we drew this arc here, as I already said, these two segments have to be congruent, and likewise this segment is congruent to that one. So all four of those are congruent to each other. And then when we drew the arc here, that meant that if I drew a line here, that this would be congruent to here. And we're going to learn later on in the course is that this triangle has to be congruent to that triangle because of side congruency. And then once we establish that, then we're going to know that all the corresponding parts are going to have to be congruent. So therefore, this corresponding angle to this corresponding angle have to be congruent. And we learned that if we have two lines and a transversal with corresponding angles that are congruent, then these two lines resulting will be parallel. Okay, let's see the next construction that we have to do. Here we go. So we have to construct a perpendicular line at a point on the line itself. Okay, so we need point A. You know what, I've got some dots showing through the paper here. Let me just sort of squeak a piece of paper in here so my next page doesn't get messed up. Okay. So we make point A, and we're going to want a line. We're going to draw this line, and then through B, we're going to make it perpendicular specifically at that point. Okay, so let's finish drawing that line. So there's our line AB. And I specifically want a line perpendicular, right angle, to B. Well, if we take our compass and, oh, there we go, this side. I got it centered on B, and I'm going to have it make a mark on line AB at 2 points. And we're going to label those points C and D. And likewise, that segment is congruent to that segment. Now, if you adjust the compass so that it's a little bit longer than it just was, a little wider. So I did. See, it's a little wider. If we center on C and draw an arc, and center on D and draw an arc, then we're going to know and mark this intersection point as, I guess, E. If you connect these points, well, first off, that is going to create the perpendicular. If you connect the B and the E right away, that line right there, that's going to be a right angle. Now, if you need an explanation for why that's a right angle, future lesson, you know this is congruent to this segment. This segment here from B to E is congruent to itself. It's reflexive property. And if we connect the C and the E, and connect the D and the E, well, we just did that arc and arc, so you know those are congruent. So that's congruent to this. So once again, since these two triangles are congruent to each other by side-side-side postulate, and then from corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, you know that this angle has to be congruent to that angle, and since they're a linear pair and they have to add up to 180 degrees, well, if they're congruent, then that means they both have to be 90s, which means that that has to be a right angle there. So this line is perpendicular. But that's a lesson for the future. Let's get this out of here. What's our next construction? Oh, this one's the easiest one. We have to construct a perpendicular from a point to a line. So if you make a line, A and B, so we got 2 points because we need 2 points to define a line. Connect the points, extend it infinitely. There's our line, A, B. Now you pick a point arbitrarily anywhere that's not on a line. Like here, here's a C. And we're going to make a perpendicular from this point to that line. This is real easy. All we have to do is set the compass so that it's longer than the shortest distance from the point C to the line AB. And just draw an arc. Okay. And then we mark the 2 points. There you go. I'm not commenting on the siren because this is where I live. I get to hear them all the time. Anyway, so these 2 points, line segments CD and CE are equal length because we used the compass. We kept that radius congruent. This congruent, and so we got those 2 points. Now, if we take this compass and make it a smidge longer, oops, sorry, no, this way. There you go. And you go from D out there and E out there. Where they intersect, that point, we'll call it F. Well, if we connect C and F, we're going to have our perpendicular line. There you go.